Man, I love Sonic Frontiers. It's definitely the most different and fun Sonic game of all time. Too bad there are only 2 islands left. Well, after that one, I bet both are going to be amazing. Okay, that last island was pretty short, but it was still really, really good. If the game's last island has a good enough conclusion, I'm sure this will go down as the best Sonic game ever made. Oh no. Sonic Frontiers. It's really good. Definitely my second favorite Sonic game. There are just a few things holding the game back. The main thing holding the game back from being the best is the end. Now, don't get me wrong, I still really like the end of Sonic Frontiers. It was a lot of fun. It just felt kind of anticlimactic. And I feel like there were a lot of things the game could have done to make it better. Also, side note, I just want to say I'm really proud of Sega since they've actually been listening to the criticism on Twitter and have been using it to try and make the game better. So while I doubt any of this will be used in the updates of the game, if someone at Sega does end up seeing this and taking inspiration from it, well, that would just make my day. So here are the changes I would make. First of all, I'd be leaving Ray Island the same because I think it's okay to have a shorter island like that as long as it's still entertaining. While Ray Island doesn't follow the same gameplay loop as the other 4 islands, it's still entertaining to climb each tower. Honestly, Ray Island might be my favorite island in the game because of its delivery of the story and the tension that's felt the entire time. However, I do think the player should have been allowed to explore Kronos Island after completing Ray Island. The game makes it pretty clear that the Starfall Islands are actually only made up of 3 islands, with Ray and Ouranos Island being part of Kronos Island. Unfortunately, in the final game, this isn't really shown with Ouranos Island. I thought it was its own island until I did research for this very video. To fix this, on Kronos Island, there would now be a large land bridge connecting from the center. This would lead to Ouranos Island. Trying to cross it on Kronos Island would lead to the end telling you,
"You stray from the path. Turn back. Complete your mission."
and pushing you back. However, you will be able to cross the bridge once you make it to Ouranos Island, allowing you to access Kronos, Ray, and Ouranos as one island. Another thing is I don't really like the bosses on Ouranos Island that much, aside from Master Ninja and Silver Hammer. It feels like every other island had at least one really cool and intimidating guardian. Kronos Island had Asura, Ares Island had Strider, and Chaos Island had Fortress. The closest thing Ouranos Island has to a really cool guardian is Caterpillar, which, like, come on. So I would have some kind of guardian that takes the strengths of the previous big bads and combines them. One that's big like Strider and has 4 arms that can reach down and grab you like Asura, and can fly like Fortress. I'll call it Circus. We'll get into its mechanics later. Once you beat Ray Island, things play out like normal. The end reveals itself as the true villain, except instead of turning away from it, I feel like it should show Supreme coming out of the portal. Supreme would then fly off to Ouranos after making his entrance. Afterwards, Tails, Amy, and Knuckles would still resurrect Sonic, but that's only the start. You're still very weak upon resurrection. Your maximum ring capacity is knocked down to a measly 200, and all of your stats back down to 1. This means any hit you take is absolutely devastating. Once you arrive on the island, you still have to collect memory tokens to revive stage, but also have to complete all 10 Cyberspace levels to open the final Chaos Emerald. That is not the only prize for beating Cyberspace levels, though. You also get your ring capacity brought up by 10% and all of your stats brought up to 10% of what they initially were. This would be rounded up if you were playing on easy or normal mode, and rounded down if you're playing on hard mode. Once you beat the island itself, Circus will spawn in the middle of the area where the Rose Garden is, but quickly it will start looking for you. It would have big searchlights that scan down the island to find you, kind of like the Guardian Seekers in Breath of the Wild. If you run into them, Circus will reach down one of its arms and grab you. Once you're there, you have to hit 3 weak spots on its 4 rings to get to the core. You'll have to dodge lasers that the core fires at you, as well as electrical charges onto the rings as you're making your way to the core. Once you're there, you need to look out for its arms, which attempt to grab you and throw you off. The core will have the power to electrify itself, banning physical attacks. It can also launch fireworks around itself, forcing you to get back. Defeating it will award you 2 years instead of 1, so there's a bit of an incentive once you're strong enough. The first thing you'll notice once you're on the island is that all of the emeralds are already shooting beacons into the sky, revealing their locations. They're also all on the map, none of them from minigames. Also, if you look very far in the distance, you can see a purple light coming from a distant island which cannot be accessed. The next thing you'll notice is Supreme standing in the middle of the forest, just kind of doing his own thing. If you get close to her, he'll pull out his gun and aim it at you. You then only have a few seconds to get going before you get vaporized. I'm mainly adding this because I felt like Supreme wasn't used enough in the base game and really only appears as a final boss, which is pretty disappointing. And don't worry, we'll get to her fight. I just kind of felt like it would be better to have Supreme appear more on the map itself and be like more of a looming threat and like have it feel better when you actually fight him. Because like every other Titan in the base game, they kind of introduce themselves, like Giganto, you even try to fight Giganto before getting thrown back. Wyvern, you have to run away from. Knight, you have to run away from. But Supreme just kind of appears. So I feel like it would be a lot better to just kind of have Supreme existing on the map. And we'll get into even cooler stuff that she does later. The second thing you'll notice is that when you try to get to the Silver Emerald, the lock to the hacking minigame is now opened a different way. There are little wires coming out of it. Each wire leads onto a pedestal. When you step on the pedestal, you get scanned. If the scan determines that you are any less than 100% of your true self, then you will not be allowed inside. This basically means you have to complete each cyberspace level to unlock the door. The last thing you'll notice is that there's a platform that's super high in the sky and definitely impossible to reach. We'll get to that later. I'll also be leaving most of Sage's memory token quests alone since there's only one that will affect this rewrite of the story. So naturally, you're going to start looking for cyberspace levels. While this isn't the order you have to do them in, I'm just going to keep things simple and assume you happen to do them based on their numerical order. The cyberspace levels on this island don't take you to any of the locations you usually do. So there's no Green Hill, no chemical plant, no Sky Sanctuary, and no just random ass city. 4-1 instead immediately drops you off into Metropolis Zone. In this version of the stage, you'd mainly be using the little spinny platforms to get around. You'd also have to use huge gears. The gears in the stage would work similarly to how they do in Hot Shelter from Sonic Adventure 1. Spikes would also come out of a lot of the platforms you land on, so timing is key. After completing the stage, you may notice a red aura around Supreme, almost like she's charging something up. Probably a good idea to keep tabs on him, just don't get too close. The second cyberspace level would take you to Launch Base Zone from Sonic 3. This stage would be built around activating switches to get to faster routes. Every route would be usable, but some take much longer than others. The lower routes also contain water, making them a lot less ideal. At the end of the stage, the goal is actually on the Death Egg platform, so you have to get to the end before it takes off and leaves you stranded in cyberspace with no exit. After completing this level, Supreme shoots a laser into the sky from her back. The laser turns the center of the sky red. Blood red clouds form around it. I'm adding this because I want to give the finale a sense of urgency that we don't really see in the base game. Yeah, the end is free, but it's not really shown doing anything until the final boss. The third cyberspace level is Lost World from Sonic Adventure. The beginning of this level would leave you in a dark room with nothing but a mirror shining a light around you to follow. You need to follow the light to see where the next few platforms are and get out. The second part of the stage would have you running up moving platforms across the walls at the edge of the room. Getting up them isn't that hard if you're moving slowly, but to get that perfect S-rank you'll have to cut some corners. Finally, the goal is down a long stone ramp. Unfortunately, a giant flaming boulder chases you down as you try to get to it. You need to avoid it, as well as any spikes that get in your way. After completing this level, half of the sky becomes red and cloudy. Supreme also becomes more aggressive, meaning you'll have to be pretty sneaky to get across some points of the island without getting shot. The fourth cyberspace level is Green Forest from Sonic Adventure 2. I like this level. It's also pretty similar to most of the levels in Sonic Frontier, so I don't think it would be that hard to implement. In fact, here's a little montage of pretty much everything the level would contain. After this level, almost the entirety of the sky is turned red, and the clouds are now raining blood onto most of the island. Supreme also shoots a few of his little gold shots around the island. Getting hit by these will most likely get rid of all your rings, so you really need to watch out. The fifth cyberspace level is Aquatic Base from Sonic 06. This level would have the base on lockdown for most of the time, like we see in Shadow's story. This means you ideally should get through the doors fast enough to not have them close on you. It's still possible to destroy them, but it takes longer. You also have to use the magnetic balls to get over pits and across laser gates. The last area would have you running to the goal as a bunch of doors shut behind you super quickly, trying to keep you in as much as possible. After completing this level, the sky is now entirely red, and blood rain falls onto the entire island. Supreme will also now be looking for you, but still staying in one place. This means if you get too close, it's over, and it'll be much harder to get away. The sixth cyberspace level is Dragon Road from Sonic Unleashed. Like Green Forest, I don't really think I have to explain this one, so here's some gameplay footage I stole instead.
Sam, you are so hot! You are my man! I got a pot of chili!
If you're still puzzled, here's a random image of a really cute dog I found. There, that should outweigh the negative emotions you feel from your confusion. After completing this level, harsh lightning can be seen and heard in the sky. The effects can also be felt across half of Ares Island. Supreme is also no longer bound to her forest and will move around the island however he wants. She won't chase you if he sees you, but will still attack you, so yeah, skedaddle. She also won't go outside of Ouranos Island, so if you're totally fucked, running to Kronos Island is an option. The 7th cyberspace level is Asteroid Coaster. This one is special because there's barely any ground at all. A lot of the level will have you moving between roller coasters and meteorites. You'll have to jump between each coaster before it falls off the track to not die. And when there's nowhere else to go, the meteors are your best friend. The goal of the level would be on the ruins of Scullion, which is crashed into the broken Wisp energy extractor. After completing this level, black tornadoes appear in the background of the island. The effects can also be felt across all of Ares Island. Supreme will now chase you if he sees you, but will not follow you onto Kronos Island. The 8th cyberspace level would now be Sky Road Act 4 from Sonic Lost World. Okay, I might be a little biased for including this one, but fuck you, nostalgia, grr. This level would mainly be 2D and have you going up, like in the base material. You'd have to defeat the puppet ghost things to get up some parts of the level, as well as grab a few rope pull-up things. You know, I've been a fan of this series for almost a decade now, and I still don't know what these things are called. Let's keep it that way. When you complete the level, you're greeted to Supreme staring right down at you. Here we get a chase scene similar to Knights, except instead of using a squid to get away, you actually end up teaming up with Eggman to escape. You hop onto the Eggmobile with him and have to boost away. The controls are pretty much identical to Knight's Shield when you're controlling it, except here you can only get hit so many times before you crash. Once you get to Kronos Island, Supreme roars at you, giving off a "that's right, bitch" vibe. Oh yeah, also, the seas are rougher and the effects can be felt across half of Chaos Island. The 9th cyberspace level is Mortar Canyon. As much as people dislike forces, I do think the level design had some potential if it was tweaked a bit more. In this level, instead of you chasing robots down, you're the one being constantly chased down by robots. You have to dash and also use panels to be fast enough to get away. You have to jump from platform to platform as well as use flying enemies to get across large gaps. Once you complete this level, it immediately triggers a cutscene where Sonic trips and falls off the Cybergate. This is because there are earthquakes and harsh winds across the island, fully affecting Chaos Island as well. Finally, remember that platform I mentioned earlier? Well, after completing the 9th level, it comes down, meaning it has to be the last one you do. Believe me though, I think you're going to understand why I saved this one for last once you see what I've concluded in it. Getting to it is a challenge of its own though, because Supreme is not messing around this time. She always knows where you are now and won't leave you alone until you get to the level. 4-10 would be a culmination of every island in Sonic Frontiers packed into one level. You start on Kronos Island and see giant forms of the Guardians as well as Giganto in the background. Instead of the regular goal, there's a teleportation ring at the end that takes you to the next part of the level. Ares Island will be more sandy, and there could be a cool segment at the end where you have to run across wyverns back to get to the goal in time. Chaos Island would feature the hot and cold feel, with the bottom pathways featuring the hot and the top pathways featuring the cold. Also, to make this even more like Chaos Island, pretty much the entire island forces you into a 2D section where you can't really, explore at all, even though it's definitely the most interesting island in the game. Fuck you, Sega! Finally, you would arrive back on Ouranos Island, and would have to climb a massive tower like on Ray Island as the world around you turns red and falls apart. Completing this final level brings your stats back to the way they were when you completed Ray Island, plus anything you might have upgraded on Ouranos Island. After completing this level, you're welcomed back to a blood-red hurricane. It's hard to see because of all the red mist, and Supreme is still being aggressive. One thing is made evidently clear: it's the end of the world, and you need to get to that emerald now. Once you get to the scanner, the hacking minigame opens. I'll leave this one the same because I feel like it's good training for the final boss. Once you complete that and get the final Chaos Emerald, it's time for the final boss, Supreme. First of all, Supreme would get a massive health upgrade. His health would be bigger than Giganto, Wyverns, and Knights combined. Sage will constantly pester you about this on Ouranos Island and tell you to level up a bunch in order to be ready for the Supreme fight. While beating Supreme is still possible with the minimum stats, it would be like trying to kill Perfect Chaos with a baseball bat. If the fight is too much to you, you can go back and level up more, however, the world would still be in jeopardy, making it much harder to get all the collectibles needed. I would also recommend that you do it on Ares Island or Chaos Island, as Supreme would still be chasing you around constantly on the other islands. Once you get the final Chaos Emerald, Eggman will explain that Sonic only has about 10 minutes before the end's hurricane starts to spread across the entire world. Sonic says 10 minutes is all he needs and flies off towards Supreme. Instead of the battle taking place around one part of Ouranos Island, Supreme uses all of it, including Kronos and Ray Island. At the start of the fight, when you start getting closer to Supreme, you immediately get knocked away all the way back to Ray Island by one of her attacks. The first phase of this fight mainly revolves around getting close to Supreme and doing as much damage as you can before getting knocked back again. As you get close, many obstacles will be in your way. You have to look out for blasts from Supreme's turrets as well as his gun. A little cursor will appear on the screen to show where she's aiming. Once he fires, you need to quick step out of the way. Parrying will help, but you'll still get knocked back a fair distance. You also need to watch out for thunder that's being caused by the hurricane. After you get her down to 3/4 health, she summons her wings and flies far into the sky. This is where you have to chase him around the island in order to do damage, like the Wyvern fight. Because of the length of this fight, rings will be provided during the second phase to get you into a better state. In order to actually hit her, you need to get close enough to hit one of his large back turrets and use that to make your way up to her head. It will take a few tries for new players, but once you get the rhythm of it, it's not so bad. Once you get him down to half health, she falls to the ground and mainly starts using his gun as a method of attack. However, she also summons a massive tornado around you and begins quickly spinning around you in it. When he shoots at you, it's important to parry the bullet back into where she'll be, like in the battle with Knight. Doing so will knock him out of the tornado and allow you to get in some hits. Once you get her down to 1/4 health, she uses gravity manipulation to send you both into the sky. The final phase is similar to the battle with the Bio-Lizard. You have to weave between bullets from the turrets while also constantly moving clockwise to avoid lasers from the big turrets. Once you get close enough to her, you are prompted to hit him with a stomp, thrusting her back into the ground. You can then use a silo to force him into a golden tornado of your own. At this point, go ham on her until HP reaches 0. After the brutal fight with Supreme, you still aren't done. The end seeps out of Supreme's body and heads up to the sky. I really like the cutscene here, so the only difference here would be that you're in a hurricane while it's going down. The first phase of the End's fight would be exactly the same as how it is in the base game. I don't think this is a bad fight at all, I just think it needs more. Also, as you're flying, when you get the End's health bar closer and closer to its end, the hurricane can be seen spraying across the earth. When you get her down to the last 1/10 of her health, Sage guarding you from the Hell Laser actually makes her lose a lot of power, meaning the final attack can't happen. The End uses this as an opportunity to get her own edge. Her health bar completely refills and she begins glowing red. At this point of the fight, anytime the End speaks to you, it's in her feminine voice. That's because the other part of her has already left. That will get its own video too, don't worry. She creates a web of lasers around herself to keep you from attacking her directly, so you have to weave through them carefully while avoiding her light shots and hell lasers. Getting hit by anything here is very bad. While hitting the lasers or light shots only sends you back a little bit, you can get knocked back into another layer, making a chain of death back to the outside. Hitting her doesn't do that much damage at first, but gets more powerful each time you go in. As the fight progresses, more hazards are unleashed. After going in for the first time, you realize how little damage you're actually doing. You only get like 1% of her health bar down. Once you're knocked back for the first time, you'll notice a golden silhouette of Amy following you. The End now releases explosion shots from her body. Little white balls now appear in the laser cage that will knock you away if they hit you. They also explode after a while into big light waves. When you get to her this time, you do slightly more damage, but still not very much. You only are able to chip away about 5% of her health before getting knocked back again. This time Knuckles follows you around. You now have to watch out for dark shots too, which create black holes around the area, which will try and suck you in. This time you do about 10% of her health before getting knocked away. Tails starts following you around now, and the End will also use Bio-Lizard lasers. If they catch you, then you get knocked all the way back to the outside. I know that may seem harsh, but remember, this is a battle that is restricted to hard mode. This time you take about 25% of her health before getting knocked back again. Now, the pilots of the Titans in the original battle against the End follow you around. She will now summon Hell Lasers to attack you. These lasers are very well telegraphed, but also take up most of the screen, meaning you need to get to the sides when you see one. These lasers don't just knock you back, but they end the fight entirely, so be careful. Once you get to her this time, you take out about 50% of your health. At this point, the fight is actual hell, and trying to get close to her is basically impossible. That's why you get your own attack. You know Perfect Chaos's projectile attack that he uses in the fight in Sonic Adventure 1? You actually get your own version of that you can use to tear through some of the End's attacks in order to make the fight more fair. These will mainly be used automatically, so you don't have to worry about that. However, they will fire out of you rhythmically, so you still need to plan out where you're going to be when one fires to make sure it's in the best spot to get rid of any of the End's attacks that are about to kill you. When you get to her this time, you take out 50% of her health, and then instead of getting knocked back, you fly to the outside. A bunch of Ancients appear behind you, as well as the symbol of the Ancients. You then summon your own Hell Laser. The Hell Laser cuts through her, and her health falls to 1%. Right before she explodes, though, she charges up one final blast against the Earth. Sage quickly flies into the End's core to stop it, blowing it up before it can fire its Hell Laser. Sonic reaches out his hand to Sage, but gets blown back by the blast. Everything goes white. The camera then pans up to Sonic in his super form falling down to the Earth as the hurricane disappears. Sonic meets up with his friends once again. All that is left is Eggman, looking at the starfall. The rest of the game would stay the same, as I think the ending is quite beautiful. So yeah, that's everything that I wrote for Ouranos Island. Of course, I don't expect Sega to use any of this or even see it, frankly, and I mainly made it for myself. If any of this appears in the new updates, though, if you enjoyed this type of video, or just Sonic content in general, consider to the channel. It helps out a lot, and I'll try to make more stuff you like. See you guys next time.
See you on